Good morning. I'm Jill Sandwright Callender, the author of the Happy Little Garbage Truck Picture Book and Educational Program. We're going to be presenting a new section of this program very shortly, but that's the only hint that I'll give at this time. But currently, our program, which is on Amazon, includes a teacher's guide with vocabulary cards, a student activity book, and the Happy Little Garbage Truck picture book, which is very unique. This is one of the first programs that I've seen that has an entire educational plan for literacy and social skills built from a children's picture book. So while the teacher's reading the picture book, the students are engaged, and then you go into the literacy elements and the social skills elements that kind of present themselves from the story. So today I wanted to speak with you a little bit more about where I left off, which was on how the whole point of um, dysregulation was a challenge during COVID. But what, to my surprise, I found out that this really went pre-COVID, dysregulation and behavioral challenges. In my own practice, I realized this when I was reading Miss Brouse's article, which is entitled "Behavioral Problems: New Challenges Post-COVID." And she's a principal of a elementary school and saw some of these things happening. And I thought her article was extremely informative. You could see I put the article and the link in my description box. But some of the things that she brought up were just truly, I connected with them. First of all, that the behavioral dysregulation is when the unfamiliar, unsettling, and unpredictable events cause behavioral challenges. And it happens in students' lives, it happens in adults' lives. We all went through this with COVID. No one had ever been through anything like this in our generation, whereas, there had been effects of this or these types of things happening way back in the early 1900s, the Spanish flu. Um, but the behavioral response really was something that I wanted to look into, because when I was teaching, this was an area of challenge for me. And I was also connecting with what she said, was that with the point that it had been seen as a growing crisis. And the really unusual thing is, and I was going to say the funny, it wasn't funny, but the unusual thing was I was in the midst of that period when behavioral challenges were growing, and I didn't realize it. But I know that I relied heavily on the board certified behavior analysis analysts that were effective in helping me come through some of these incidents with a better understanding of the children and how my response could have been better in learning how to rethink my response to another child's challenge and behavior. And, this could have been work refusal, it could have been social conflicts with another child. And in some cases, it was more physicality and destructiveness towards other children and towards adults and the classroom. So, all in all, I was trying to make my classroom engaging and a safe place. And then we would have these disruptions. And I said, okay, so how can I better handle this as a teacher? And these behaviors showed me ways of how I could detect when a child was escalating, what to do in each level of that escalation, and how to help the child calm down if they went into a full behavioral meltdown, we call them. But it's this information from Mrs. Brouse's article. It truly is I think, a very respectful way of how we can look at what was happening pre-COVID. Um, so she brought up an interesting point, which I had never thought of before, that this was the children's way, pre-COVID, a child's way of communicating that the world was overwhelming. And I hadn't considered that, but just think about it. The world was and still is a busy place. And so their young brains were trying to keep up and find a sense of security and control. And this was definitely a way that control and perhaps a child could find a way to relate to what was going on around them. But the outcome was a lot more suspensions, a lot more expulsions were happening, and behavioral analysts were there to do functional behavioral assessments to try to find out ways that teachers, educators, and administrators could try to reduce these challenging behaviors. Well, in my next installment, we're going to look at how the pandemic affected this whole um, continuum of what was happening before, and then what happened when the pandemic began. And then we're going to look at how can we, as educators and parents and administrators, respond to students post-COVID. So thank you for subscribing. Please share. And I hope that I will keep the next one. I'm trying to keep these around 5 minutes, but there's a lot to say. So I'm trying to break them up into little pieces. So thank you so much and have a wonderful weekend. Bye bye.